Well, I'm back. And see how soon you guys get back. So, this is the 5 directions, senses, and forces. They kind of interact a bit, right? And it gives us, here we are on this digital platform. The number 5 kind of gives us the platform for us when we are in the bubble, right? When we're in the illusion of materialism, right? Directions, what are the 5 directions? North, south, east, and west. East is my favorite because it's birth. The sun always rises every day when the sun comes up in the east. I know. I kind of go to sleep when it gets dark, I go to sleep. When the sun comes up, I wake up. And the directions also deal with, the 5 deals with the forces, There's fire, ice, liquid, atmosphere, and ether, right? And ether is also the vacuum, and also dark matter. You have your 5 senses, which are taste, smell, feel, sight, hearing. Right? When our cerebral cortex starts to collapse, first to go is sight, and then the next is taste, then the next is feeling. Actually, feeling goes first. So, get in a car crash, someone's heading for the drain when they're screaming in pain, and then all of a sudden, oh, I don't feel, it's okay, I feel fine, it's all right, right? Then they can't see. Oh, who turned out the lights, Then they can't taste and smell, and hearing. Hearing goes next, but they're kind of, those 3 dim, right? And they stay with you. But the last to go is smell, right? And when we first come here, the first we get is smell, then taste, then hearing, seeing, and then feeling. And they come rather quickly, and they leave rather quickly. And so why am I talking about the sensory modalities, the directions, the forces? Because I think because they are the building blocks of the illusion, we have to deconstruct them and look at them in our process of building the alternative aesthetic, right? So I showed you how to build a fire because I was building a fire to warm the house up. And I went up there so John could see how it's done because he just, doesn't seem to be. Once in a while he gets it going, but most times it's pretty simple, Paper, kindling. You put a big log on one side so you can lean the other smaller wood up on it, and then you light the paper. It catches the cardboard, which catches the kindling, which catches the logs, and they burn down and make embers, and then you just keep feeding the fire. Those embers, you keep keeping them up, and they will keep keeping the fire going. Pretty much, that's it. And that is kind of what we have to do with our lives, and with inside of this alternative aesthetic, I'm a little bit on a low energy scale because I really haven't quite meditated. I thought, working on the fire and then looking at it and meditating on the fire would get me going. And I shot that fire for a good 10, 15 minutes, if not longer. So meditation, a flame, when you go into your library, first thing you see is the eternal flame, and then your library, you illuminate your library with, the light, the photonic light coming from your imaginary mirror, which is fed by the prana that you're breathing in, right? When you start to breathe that 20%, you kind of are there. That feeds the fire, that brings animation to every cell of your body, right? And so that's why I showed the fire. They're symbolic of each other. And photonic light is the thing that is the presence of love's co-creation, Non-photonic light is the light of Lucifer, the illumination that brings forth the shadow, the mystery, the illusion. There's three of you. What are you thinking? 7 minutes, 37 seconds. What are you thinking? Put up probably more than 200 of these live chats since October 15th, right? And this morning, it was almost 4 hours, so I'm kind of a little tuckered out. And it's been snowing, and it's been cold, and it's been gray. It's been all of those things. And I kind of looked at, all of the feeds that I have, and they are, cold and gray and not too much light. There's a guy who does a thing called living off the grid, right? Luke. And he does his morning rambles, and he is really kind of inspirational. But in the last, John has been wanting to do these stories of the paranormal, and we did one live chat of the paranormal. And, I've seen a lot of it. I've been studying it for 50 years. And I've, been, I was an EMT, for 3 years, car crashes and heart attacks. Pretty much that's it. I was a volunteer fireman, and all those years, we went to one fire. Right? Now, we started a bunch and put them out just to practice, how to, when you're a fireman out in the suburb, not even the farmlands, the farm, out there, there are no fire hydrants. So you have a tanker truck. And then you basically have two tanker trucks. One that you put your lines on, and it pumps the water onto the fire. But that tanker truck is like 1,200 gallons, and that's a lot of water, but you go through it pretty quick, especially if you have to put out a big fire. So what you do, you have these kind of little, kiddie pools that are big, that hold about 500 gallons themselves. So you put up 3 or 4 of those. You have another, like a tanker truck that's like not the pumper not all the equipment, but it's just a big tank with a pump. And you drive to the nearest pond and you fill that up. And that sucker has maybe 2,000 gallons. And then you come and you put the water into the little, swimming pools, and then you got a backup, and you got a hose coming from each going into the tanker. And the tanker truck has buttons that you can switch from one to the other. And so, and you just keep, a third of the team at a fire is going and getting water and bringing it to those little swimming pools. The other 2/3 are fighting the fire. Going in, you attack into the fire, right? And you're wearing your oxygen and your protective gear, your bunker suit, and you go in and you attack, right? Well, you can only stand in the middle of the fire for so long before you start to melt, so you have to retreat. And then the other third, there's two more thirds, and there's 1/3 going bringing you water, or maybe quarters, let's say. 1/4 is going to get water and bring it back to the ponds. That's what they're called, the ponds, but they're just kiddie pools. Fires get started, and they have fire extinguishers, and then you have two more, and they're also supportive of the guys attack, right? And so the other, half or 2/4, one goes in and attacks, and then when it gets too hot, they come out, and then the other one who's been stated hitting the building or the structure, we call it the structure, from the outside, right? And then they run in, and then the guys who got all hot by being inside the fire, hit the perimeter, the outside of the structure. And that's how you fight a fire. So in the 3 years I was a volunteer fireman, we went to one fire, right? It was a chicken farm. And one of their ancillary sheds or barns kind of caught fire, and it was the one that they kept their tractors and things in. And it had gasoline and kerosene and lubricants in it, and something caught fire, and it, was going pretty good. Well, next to that building was like a 20,000 tank of propane, because they had about 50,000 chickens, and chickens are very susceptible to cold, and this is, the Finger Lakes of New York gets pretty nippy up there, so they have some serious heaters to keep those chickens warm. And so, this was an egg farm. So it's on top of a hill, and it was really windy. So, man, that wind was fanning that fire. And we were about 3 miles coming up that hill, and that hope and the blue was like a Roman candle. And and we're about a mile and a half from getting on site. And just when we're a mile and a half away, the propane tank explodes, and it blows the whole farm, the chickens, the farm, all the other buildings, and luckily not the farmhouse, because people were in that. And so we're about a mile and a half, and it just blew up like a bango, and everything went all over the place. And as we're driving up, chunks of tractors and chickens and wood burning was falling down. But basically that explosion blew out that raging fire, just blew it out, boom, right? And then we went around and put out the little fires that were blown all over the place. So, and it was winter, so there was nothing really outside of those buildings, or especially that gasoline and kerosene and lubricant and the propane, that could really burn. So we put it out. But that was the only fire. Now, if we had gotten there and the fire was going and we were starting to set up and pulling our equipment out, we would have been dead, because there was a pretty large truck that they delivered, not quite a tractor trailer, but a large, delivery truck. And, our fire trucks were about the same size, a lot heavier, because we have big pumps and tanks and equipment. But it shredded that truck, just shredded it. That explosion just shredded it. And that's kind of where we would have parked if we were going to attack the fire. And if we had gotten there like 2-3 minutes sooner, we'd all been dead, you know. So that was a time that, yeah, I could have been dead. City, the one who dressed like a. I've had two dentists who dressed like clowns when they worked on you. Don't go to those guys. And and I took the subway. I took the IRT, and I got off at the 34th Street thing on, I think it's Lexington Avenue or Broadway or Fifth Avenue, right where the library is, right. And there's a beautiful little park on the backs. There's Fifth Avenue on one side, and I guess Sixth Avenue or Seventh Avenue on the other side. And that's where I came up out of the subway. And when the subway stopped there, I got off, and about 10 other people got off, right? And we all kind of marched up the steps together, right? And then we started marching up 34th Street because my dentist was on 34th and 5th Avenue, right? So marching up. And along 34th Street there are tons of people selling books. There are guys who rent little carrels, and so they can lock up their stuff. It's like a newsstand. And then there are guys who show up in their car and they unload boxes and have tables and they can sell it. And this is a tradition, and so if you set up there, you don't need to have a vendor's license to sell books in front of around the library, right? So I'm a book guy. So I get off the subway, I march up the steps, and we're all like in stride. And 34th Street's a big avenue. It's not a street. It's as large as Fifth Avenue, Sixth Avenue. It's 42nd Street, 34th Street, 14th. There are a number of streets that are large that go across. And so little vitamin C, clear the throat. I stop at a carrel and I'm thumbing through books, and then I hear a screams, and then a crash, and then a really big crash. And I look up, and those 10 people that I was walking with, 8 of them were walking across Fifth Avenue, and the bus was turning, and another truck came this way and smashed into the bus, and the bus driver had a heart attack right then, and he careened right over those 8 people of the 10. So the 10 of us that got off the subway and walked up the steps, 6 of them died. 2 of them were totally messed up, and I don't know if they died later. But I stopped to look at books, and I should have been, rushing to go to the dentist, but I didn't, So I've had a number of times that, like I said, I've physically died 6 times, and they brought me back. And I've had probably another 6 that if I was, a minute here, a minute there, or a couple seconds there, I'd have been dead. So these are things that rule our life. And mostly, we forget about all of this stuff. And basically, why we are here, this is a sandbox. See, that's why I constantly, there is no good or bad. There is no evil. There is no, right? Now, there's manifestations of all these things when we do them, and that has a karmic and dharmic reaction. That's a cost, it's a cost. What is the cost of all the things we do in life? And the bottom, I've told the story this week a number of times about speeding ticket, and then because of that, I met people and done things that I wouldn't have done if that hadn't happened. And so if you weigh what's good or bad, well, getting that ticket, was, that's going to cost me whatever in money and time, but it made me wake up more conscious, right? Then in dealing with it, I met a whole bunch of interesting people. So a lot of people look at, oh, why is this happening to me? It's so terrible. Look, I got really sick. I mean, ridiculously sick. And if I had let the medical model do what they wanted to when I had some money, I had, money in the bank, I had amazing credit rating, and that's the first thing they ran when I was in the hospital, my lawyer who I was with when, I conked out into a plate of spaghetti, this guy's, a shark lawyer. Anyway, so he had all my information, because I was working for him. And, what's his name, where's he live, blah, 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 what's the social security number? He gave it all to him. And he's watched them. And the first thing they did was a credit rating on me. And I had like 850 or the top notch, almost 900, as high as you can go. And so they said, oh, wow. So, he's in the emergency room and, they kind of bring me back and they're prepping me for open heart surgery and to cut my legs off. And I said, no, what are you doing? I woke up and, they didn't expect me to wake up. They thought this lawyer would sign the papers and they would roll me in and make $200,000 in about 4 hours, right? And I said, I kind of came out of it and said, no, don't touch me. Get away from me. Take this stuff off me. And they go, well, you're really sick. You're really going to die. Unless we take care of you, you're going to die. And I said, well, if that's true, that'll be fine. I'll make that choice. Get back. Well, I already died 5 times, 6 times. Anyway, and I said, see this guy? He will eat you alive. He is my lawyer. Listen, I want to get out of here. Get them to release me. And if you don't do this in the next half hour, this guy is going to own you. Your children will be in slavery and he and I used to have this joke because I work for Ralph Nader in New York Public Interest Research Group, NYPIRG. And he sent me off to a couple of lectures at Columbia Law School just to get a few things straight. And one of these lectures, the guy, he has his assistant write in gigantic letters, justice. And then he erases it. I never want to hear anyone say this. If I hear you say this, you fail. You get thrown out of law school. And then he draws a $sign. And he goes, that's what law in America is. And someone last night said, oh, you're lucky to live in America. It's the only place that has freedom of speech and blah, blah, blah. And I said, yeah, right. We've never had freedom of speech. We live in we're in a slave world. This is an illusion. We are, anyone who went on the Vision Quest last night and we visited Satan's office building, definitely got the 411 on what's going on. So, anybody saying anything? Come on, there's 8 of you. Say something. Let's see. My chat. All messages are visible. Come on, let's see some of those. Okay, there. Let's see. Okay, lights in my room are giving me a headache. Okay, we'll knock them down. You just hold on there. Is that better? That better? Is that better? Is that better? So, cool. Okay. Hey, gang. It's a joke. But, see, the thing is, when Jefferson wrote this, he wrote life, liberty, pursuit of freedom, right? And the business folks said, oh, no, we need a little more of, something that we can have plausible deniability. So they put in happiness. What the fuck is happiness? And in America, we are having weather wars, meaning the general public here is being attacked. All those folks in California, all those fires have been brought on by space-based energy weapons, right? There's this site called stopthecrime.net, right? And that lady's got it down. And she is great because she's a total bourgeois person, whatever she was. And somehow all of this kind of, she got her house barbecued by a ray gun, and other things happened to her. And she really started to realize, my God, the world is nothing like, I believed, everything that I was told is a lie. She took the red pill, and so she started that thing, and she is like a junkyard dog with a bone. She is just after it and everything. So there's this thing called Agenda 21, get rid of, 200 million people in America, bring the world population down to, 500 million, and everybody else has to die, And so they basically are trying to prep everyone for this. It's going to be one nasty satanic ceremony because these guys, the Jews, the owners who are not human, are basically feed off the fear of the ugly bags of water and the mud puppets, and that's why I've been looking at all the feeds and, all these people who are somewhat cool, like the Leak Project and a few others, go on and on about, the big coronal X factor, blah, 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 planet Larry coming at us, twice the size of Jupiter. And, we're going to have, poles are going to shift. Well, if any of that happens, the bottom line is we're not going to know about it until it's like right there, and especially the solar flares and the polar shifts. If those happen before we can say what, before we will be blown into dust. So if you're going to go, that's not a bad way to, no suffering, no long stays in a hospital, no chemotherapy, just bing, gone, right? So that's why I keep, working with you guys to go and state, because all you had to do, if that was about to happen, and all you had to do was go, take that breath in, and bingo, you'd be in your akashic record. And then you'd be in your consciousness. And then you'd be in a safe environment with guides and counselors and avatars helping you out, right? And your body, your ugly bag of water would be toast. And it's okay, because this body is not me, right? Your body is not you. But while you have it, you might as well have some good times with it, And 90% of having a good time is having a good time with someone else. And 80% of that 90% is not, getting drunk or doing drugs or sex or drugs and rock and roll. No, it's making someone happy by doing something for them and not buying them an iPhone or a car or expensive present. Bring them a flower, read them up, write them a poem, share, go on a nice long walk. Oh, that's kind of fun. A witch's broom that crashed out of the sky. That's, I'd like to see that. Okay. Mm-hmm. Yes, I would go with that one. So all of these things that are going on basically are a dynamic of the illusion world, right? So if it's an illusion, What's the big deal? If the thing that's most important is your consciousness co-creating with love, you can do that by simply going, every time you go to your superconscious mind, your sanctuary of your own choice, you are there. The essence that you feel, that love, that uncontrollable happiness, that, total forgiveness, that understanding that you're not a sinner, that you're not bad, that's the best thing about your sanctuary. And the other thing about your sanctuary that's really amazing is that, yes, there's the meadow, there's the gazebo, there's the tree of life, the lake of the link, but there's a ton of other stuff that you can go explore. And it goes on forever. So you got a lot to explore out there. And it's all connected to your consciousness. I mean, it's all about understanding the truth of love's co-creation. In the beginning, all things were dark, black, whatever, the darkness. And then the word was heard, logos. And then the word said, let there be light. And logos was actually, Satan. He's not just a light giver. He was screaming. He was pissed off. He was jumping up and down because what are how can love's co-creation love these morons? I mean, they're not anything. They're like, a little, nut in a box. So they got free will, so they're outside, the plan, you know. Why does love them more than me? I'm the perfect, one. I'm the guy, and I'm doing all the forever. I've been, love's number one guy, and that's where the light came from. That screaming, yelling, jumping up and down. That was logos, the word. Logi. Go look that one up. And the light came crashing down, and that was the Big Bang. And the Big Bang is this envelope, this bubble of a make-believe world, and we're here now, but we have a consciousness, right? And I am your sensei Al Bob, giving you the 411 on. Okay, breathe 20% in, 30% out. Okay, see me, I'm relaxed. I'm leaning against my pillow. I'm kind of perfect for meditation. So let's see. It's 33 minutes and getting on to 33 seconds. So at this point, I want to hear a little bit more from you guys. Let's read your the chats you got here. Okay, I got rid of the lights. Hi. Liberty, yeah, found witch's broom. Great flood is now with vibration rather than. So, gee, give me a 411 on that. That's interesting. The great flood is now with vibrations rather than water. So enumerate on that. Elucidate. 5G. Okay, gotcha. Right. And what's 5G going to do? I live out, the school here is we are about, the school is really nice because we're right on the edge of the national forest, right? We are in what a number of years ago was a farm area, and yet we're only about, 10 miles to the city. But we're up on the big mountain here in this valley. We're on the back side of it. It's called Bent Mountain. And it's a pretty rural thing, even though we're only 10 miles to, a city of 300,000. Actually, I would say more like 80 to 110,000. The whole valley's 300,000. So the Mountain Empire, as I call it. And so... but all the little farm roads around here, every 200 yards, every third telephone pole, they're putting up the 5G antennas, right? Now, luckily for the school here, we are on top on the backside, and there's no other houses, no other roads, so they're not going to spend. We don't have. You have to. Those 5G things, they have to have either fiber optic or a cable line that they can hang off it, right? And we don't even have telephone lines up here. So we're not going to be, I'm sure we'll be in the wavelength of 5G, but not like those people who are less than 100 yards from these antennas. And it's really pretty sick. Like it's every third telephone pole, there's a little white box with a big penis. You seen it? It's like a penis. Did you ever see J.J. Abrams' TV show called Person of Interest? With they had these two artificial intelligence, the machine and the Sumerian. And that's kind of what one of the computers, did. It diversed itself. It stuck itself on every third, a little box on every third telephone pole in America, right? That was 5G. J.J. Abrams is, in the loop. They give him the story, and he then makes. I mean, look at Lost, and what was the and Fringe? Did any of you guys ever watch Fringe? That was me at Duke University. Walter was the guy I worked for. I mean, he's at Harvard, but it was the same kind of thing. I mean, that box he had, the sensory deprivation, that's the stuff I used to make, but mine were way cooler than the one he had. So, everything is right around us. Everything is being shown to us. Underground. Holy moly. But again, all of this stuff, all it has an effect on is the illusionary world. And if you free yourself by meditation, it's not going to have that big an effect. Wasn't Fringe? Mike, what did you think of Fringe? I thought that was, like I said, that's what I did at Duke. That was me at Duke, the girl, Walter's assistant, the FBI girl with the curly hair, not our hero, but the Hispanic or Filipino girl, that was my girlfriend. But let's see, just here for the ride. Yes, no, but no, not just for the ride. The ride is good. The entertaining part is good. Amazing series. I really just kept going from one thing. Hey, this is going to happen. And what was it, 10, 12 years ago? Pretty much ahead of its time. And the same thing with Lost. Lost was another one of those things. But Lost was like too much in that, if, Fringe, I liked the way he produced it because you could jump in at any show. We're Lost. If you didn't watch it every frigging a week, you were lost. You were lost, You couldn't just jump into the middle of that show. And Babylon 5, what's that, like 20 years ago? That was pretty amazing. I mean, freaking Star Trek with Jim Kirk, that's almost 50 years. And it basically, the replicator, what is that? But 3D printer, the communicator, what's that? But, a flip phone. The tricorder, what's that? But your smartphone, right? Or your tablet. And so we have been pre-programmed for all of this stuff in the last 50 years. And then Jules Verne's and H.G. Wells, they kind of give us the 411 on everything. Yes, what would humanity be without Lost? So that's why, we are charged here as the cadre to build and create an alternative aesthetic to all of this, right? And part of it, the major tool, instead of having a smartphone, we have our akashic record. Yeah, it did, but see, that was good too because it made you expand your imagination. Third one was great. Third, fourth, and fifth were great, right? And then they had to make up. I like the one when the observers took over. And those, all of that stuff is exactly what it was. What's this record? The Akashic record. You know, uh, back to Eden. You haven't experienced the evening chats where we go into state and we each go into our akashic record, which is our subconscious. It's a library, right? Okay, so let's see, 40 minutes. Let's say 45 minutes. We're gonna go. Hi, peeps. Hey, buddy, bud. Did you have a good day? Oh, buddy, bud, last night going to Satan's office building. Westworld, yeah, the movie and the TV show. Hell yeah. So, Buddy Bud and the rest of the clan, I'm thinking of doing tonight's, visualization, going into state, going into your Akashic record, looking at the business plan that, the commerce Wallonian bankers, right? How this was set up as a business plan, right? And as, yeah, that was a good one too, Millennium. And that, well, that was Chris Carter and X-Files started, Twilight Zone, Rod Sterling, you know, back in the day, then Outer Limits. And then in the 70s, you had all those, Planet of the Giants, the space, you know, what was the submarine one? Oh, you lost. I got lost there. Lost in space. The lost room. Yes. So, am I back, guys? Can you see me? Can you hear me? Tommy, can you hear me? Yes. Okay. So anyway, all of those things were done on purpose because within the construct of the evil empire, of all of those, Theosophical Society, ISIS Foundation, Bohemian Grove, Illuminati, all those guys. And you got to remember, these aren't the guys at the top of the heap. I have opted out tonight, my lovely people, so please excuse me, have a wonderful time. I'm going to the country for a few days with some more good folks. Well, buddy, be there, and we will close our eyes and be in state and visit you there in the country. You have a great time. You enjoy it. Send me some pictures of it on my, Gmail. The Dude Awake 42 at Gmail. Buddy, get a hold of me there. Send me some pictures of, New Zealand. The Prisoner, that was also one of the, and the Avengers, with Emma Peel. Oh, baby. She was my first really big crush. Freemasons, yep. Love you, bud. Travel well, be safe. Okay, gang. Well, let's send Buddy right now. Close her eyes, take a big breath. This is a good little exercise. I'm doing it on the fly, right? 20% in, 3% out, right? We're breathing in that prana. We're energizing our blood. We're electrifying our mitochondria, and that is our little antenna. And we're sending a flood of unconditional love to Buddy, right? Instead of putting it in our imaginary mirror and, illuminating our Akashic record, we're sending it to Buddy, okay? So it's 44 minutes and 45 minutes, so let's spend a long time loving Buddy and sending him safe travel energy, happiness energy, being really in state with his friends that he's going to go travel with, see it clearly, send all that love to Buddy. 30 degrees when water unfreezes. Love you, buddy. Okay. So, 45, another good. So we're kind of in state. So everyone get in a comfortable position. And since we've been talking about the business plan and all these TV shows that have been pre-programming us all to accept what the illusion has in store, that's where we're going to go. We're going to go into our akashic record, and we're going to, instead of go through one of those doors or into the tree, we're going to stick at least a good portion of the time with our akashic record, right? And start looking at this stuff, right? And because you're going to be there, you're going to be able to text us here in the chat. So you're going to take in that 20%, not the 30%. You're in a comfortable position. You're safe, secure. No, if you need to wake up, just snap my fingers and you'll be wide awake. But for now, I'm going to count from 1 to 3, and you're going to go deeper and deeper into a state of relaxation. And 1, your conscious mind is totally focused. Let's do a sound check. Can you guys hear me? Are we all here? We're all on the same page. Yes. Okay. So, and 1, your conscious mind is totally focused on your breath. You're breathing in 20% more than your autonomic system has breathing for you. Your autopilot. Your autonomic system is your autopilot. And when you breathe 20% more, what it does, it forces your conscious mind, the little squirrel in the cage in your Rolodex, in your mind. Your mind isn't you. Your consciousness is you. And your consciousness is somewhere else. It's in a server somewhere else. Protected, right? And that server is called free will. And your consciousness is somewhere off. And you are experiencing the sandbox of the bubble of Lucifer's illusion, of the Big Bang. And you are distracted at all times unless you are conscious, unless you are awake. And the easy way to get in that state of being awake and conscious is just breathing 20% more than your autonomic system has you on autopilot. So you stop being on autopilot. And you breathe in that 20%, and then you breathe out the 30%. And that 30% does 2 things. It eliminates, evacuates all the negative toxins in your body. You evacuate more waste product through your breath than you do through feces, urine, sweat, right? Because you eliminate, you breathe in and out something like 150 cubic feet, or even more, 1,000, 1,000,000, lots. I mean, just an unbelievable amount of volume of prana goes in and out of your lungs when you breathe. And that's, the prana is what animates you. It's that that dark matter, that, ether, that vacuum that exists out there in the beginning, all things were black, and then Lego said, let there be light, right? So, and that was Lucifer, and brought down the light, and brought the Big Bang because he was so pissed off. And we've been living in this illusionary world ever since. See it clearly. So, right now, you're breathing in that prana, and it's cleansing every cell of your body because it goes into your lungs. Your heart pumps red blood through your lungs, highly filled with iron, and it energetically connects to that. The blood flows down the veins, and it swirls. Doesn't go blub, blub, blub. It swirls through the veins, clockwise against the wall, and inside of that, counterclockwise, and inside of that, clockwise. What's that? Polyphase alternating current scalar generator. and that is the animating energy of your avatar. And that is why the powers that shouldn't be, the sock puppets, and the hidden hand, all live off that energy, and that's why we're stuck in this prison planet. It's not that, and it's not just our planet. This is a friggin' universe that is the illusion, right? How do we escape it? Through breathing in 20% and breathing out 30. And now you've illuminated your avatar, and the visor that's between, the illusion of your ugly bag of water, your meat puppet, your mud puppet, is your, you know, right here, where this is like your imaginary mirror. This is where you have REM sleep. When you sleep and you have dreams, you see your little eyes because it's looking at the movie off the backside of your eyelids. So now you're in a state and you're illuminating your imaginary mirror with that photonic light, a photon. That's what prana is, and that's what animates everything. The light that is Luciferian is ersatz, photonic light. They can actually produce it in technology world these days with diodes, and it comes. You can put it on your ceiling, and it throws no shadows whatsoever. But Luciferian light, wherever you see a shadow, it's a bright, sunny day. It's big. You've got movie lights. You see shadows. That is Luciferian light. That's ersatz light. Doesn't animate anything. Doesn't give life to anything. But the energy coming, the photons coming out of the sun, come from love's co-creation, and that's why things grow. That's why. Anyway, I'm getting into the weeds here, but just so you know it, the light that you see in dreams, the dreams that you see, the movies that you see at night when you're asleep, those are more real than the life you're experiencing when you're awake. That's the illusion. Anyway, there you are, surrounded by the prana's white light, photonic light, in your imaginary mirror, and you're projecting that imaginary mirror into your akashic record. It's the library of your consciousness or your soul, right? So you've illuminated your subconscious, and your subconscious is not the scary place. It's a library, So you walk in front of you is this big, all the walls are these, it's not stones that you first think they are. It's all these big books. And the fireplace is made out of big books. And the raging blue fire is the eternal flame of love's co-creation. See it clearly. And you're walking in, and there in front of the fireplace is your reading table and a reading chair, and to the left is your librarian. See your librarian clearly. Bow in grace and gratitude and humility to your librarian. Then to the left of your librarian is your animal totem. See your animal totem clearly. Remember your librarian, what your librarian looks like, right? What your librarian feels like. And remember your animal totem. Again, And then to the left of your animal totem is your guardian angel, right? Remember all three. See them clearly. Librarian brings you the information, brings you your akashic record. And that has everything you've ever done in the past, present, and future, right? Future, now, you can't bet on the future. It's a little sketchy. But it'll give you a preview and a little heads up. So if you kind of keep an eye on it, it's like the magic 8-ball. Kind of gives you a little info, but you can't bet on it. It's kind of like, anything that's divination. I do that really well. 50 years of practice of tarot, I Ching, the runes, and palmistry, tea leaves. I don't call myself an expert, but put it all together, I'm pretty good. And that's what I do, too. I don't do just one or two. I put them all together, and it gives me, like Plato said, wise man who is guided by the stars, a fool who is led by them. Right? Got it? So, and that's why I'm your Sensei Alba. I put all of this stuff together in a shamanic, psychosocial, cultural, forensic, anthropologic alchemy. I got more degrees than a thermometer. Called The Tomorrow People, 70s, sci-fi British teen series. You know me and my discovering things. Yes, I do know you, Michael. Right? Geomancy. Yep, that's kind of what some of the folks call it. But I don't call it any one thing because it's so many different disciplines. Anyway, back to you going into your akashic record, back into the library, right? And so your guides are to your left, and to your right are 9 doors and one big open door. And that big, there is no door, it's a doorway. That doorway takes you to your superconscious mind. That is a sanctuary of your own choosing. We'll go there in a little bit. But for now, you're going to sit down at your reading table, that nice reading chair, and the light coming from above is photonic. There are no shadows. Your librarian brings you this big book, and you open it up, and you lean into it, right? The right hand goes on the right page, the left hand goes on the left page, and you lean into it, right? And what you're going to do is you're going to evacuate, empty every bit of hate, anger, fear, loathing, envy, all of those things into your text, and then you're going to close the book. Boom. You no longer feel like Sisyphus rolling the planet up the hill. You are light and airy, free of all of these prejudices, all of these fears, all these anxieties. They're gone, right? So open the book again, right, to that page. And all of that is now on one big screen across those 2 pages. And around it are 28 little screens. And I'm going to be quiet for a moment, and you guys are going to take a look at all of that angst and fear and negativity and see what it is and where it came from and what's going on. Okay? So I'm just going to be quiet here. And 2, you're in a deep, deep, deep state of relaxation. You're looking at all the causes of your anxieties, your fears, your frustrations, all of the incidents in this life and your past lives that have set you up for this. Again, this is a carnival tilt-a-wheel ride of an illusion of Satan, See it clearly. And once you kind of have this in perspective, you will be able to get a handle on your life. See it clearly. In your Akashic record, the pages are thin like onion skins, right? So all of the negativity and anxiety that you put in the book, that's no longer in you. No longer, you're not carrying it around. It's not in your consciousness. You're not being oppressed by it. Now, it may come back tomorrow, once it gets fired up by some experience, or you look at it, deep enough with perspective, and you got 28 little screens to give you pretty good perspective, and then you got your librarian to bring you any other book you need to look at it, like the direct writings of Freud or Jung or Plato or Socrates or anybody. There are a lot of good writers out there in the human race and also in the solar system. You're not just limited at your Akashic record to the Earth or even our solar system. Your Akashic record looks at the whole, jelly bean of the bubble of Lucifer's illusion, because you are a adept. You are part of this cadre. You are my Padawan. You're my students. I am your Sensei Al Bob, your teacher, right? And not any, you give me great love and respect, and I really appreciate that. But I serve love's co-creation, and I bring forth the connection, and I don't make the connection. You already have the connection. I'm just, I forgot, was it Buddy or someone said that, I'm the pathfinder. I'm cutting the weeds out of the way, right? You know, trimming back the hedge so you can get through the hedgerow without getting all beat up. And I protect you, I was a good student of my sensei. That's exactly it. Remember that feeling when God came and touched you. And the folks, you folks who've been here long enough, the concept of God, the word God, and the word Lord, or any of those other churchy motifs, are really part of the illusion. It's one of the things that gets us stuck. Religions have caused more havoc in the human experience than pretty much almost anything. Because what are religions? But they're tax-free, meaning they're all about money, all about greed, all about avarice, all about ego, right? Whereas you being connected to love's co-creation, love is the only, if you were going to put, instead of God, use the word love. You look at every avatar that was around, Jesus, Buddha, Vishnu, just to name three, these guys, and there are a lot of women, they just don't get the press, Mary Magdalene, Jesus' mother Mary, that's why I use, Hail Mary, right? Because a lot of these have female avatars named Mary for some reason. Anyway, you're there with your Akashic record in front of you. And you turn the page, right? And so one of the little things we've been talking before we went into state is all of these TV shows that were all our favorites, right? Because they represented a metaphor for us that touched us in a way, just like music touches us, just like theater touches us, just like films touch us, just like literature touches us. Art touches our consciousness and our soul, more than commerce, right? So I want you, like Mike, what is, put on the screen of everyone who's in state looking at their Akashic record, tell us Blake 7. Give us, you liked it. Tell us what it's about, And the tomorrow people, Inc. What is Woolsey Gummingage with John Perthiel? You guys who are Anglophile, English, Irish, Iron, or Australian folk, because I lived in all those countries, and that's why I found Doctor Who, in London in the 70s. That's where I found a number of other English sci-fi things in Australia. I'd run home from work to watch Doctor Who and a few others. But you guys, it really, I saw it when I was in my, early 20s and got hooked on that stuff. And then it came to America, which was great. So, come on, Mike, inform us on, that show tomorrow, people. That sounds interesting. And Blake Seven. So, what are those? Sapphire and Steel. Oh, oh, the dialects. Yep. Sci-fi, space opera. Yep. I love the dialects. They're made out of garbage cans on roller skates, and their ray gun was a toilet plunger. What was that? Not devastate, not destroy. Eliminate? No. I forgot what the dialect said. And all of my dogs were just like Doctor Who's K9. They were that loyal and that smart. Because, K9 was way smarter than Doctor Who. Doctor Who was just a lucky bastard. And two, you're in a deep, 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 deep state of relaxation. You're in your akashic record. You're sitting at your reading table with your guides on your left, and you're looking at metaphors for the illusion that we are stuck in. Because before we can create an alternative aesthetic, which will be the liniment and the salve and the thing that will loosen up the stuckness of all our relations in this illusioned world. We're going to have to go and look at all this stuff. And the things that are the strongest are things like these TV shows and literature and theater and poetry. That's more about the spirit of man who shot himself. What are your thoughts on that? Okay, let me read that one. Tell us more about the spirit of man who shot himself. Well, I've seen a lot of people shoot themselves. And people shoot themselves for selfish reasons. Now, people who step in front of a bullet, who are sacrificing their life for somebody else, that person, Dickens again. We go back to literature. Carlton, the guy, it's a far, far better thing I do today than I ever did before. Yes, a guy who's a great lawyer. He's like the people's lawyer, and he's a bailiff kind of lawyer in England in the latter part of the 18th century, and he was a street kid, and this generous, jolly lawyer picked him up and brought him home and cleaned him up and treated him like his son and put him through law school and made him part of his firm. And then the guy becomes, the best lawyer. So that was a good investment for that guy because as he retires, this guy takes him over. And he does all of these. He's like the lawyer of the downtrodden, right? And the powers that be are for that because there's one guy doing that, him, and it gives the sense of hope to the general public, the useless eaters, the guys who, the rabble, as the lords would say. And so it keeps them at bay without them having to throw them in jail or do anything. They have this one guy who gives everybody hope. And they let a few of those people loose, and that is the smart oppressor. The best slave to have is the one that doesn't think they're a slave, right? Well, I got this big screen TV and I got all the popcorn and Coca-Cola. I got a great life. I got that fancy car out there, right? Anyway, well, that's a good slave. One who feels like they are free. That's why we have a constitution, guaranteeing us life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. Not so much. With all these big catastrophes in California and North Carolina, South Carolina, those counties and states, they don't have the money to rebuild, right? So there are a number of corporations that are just like the World Bank, investing in these communities and then owning them. And what's truly strange, if you read these contracts, the guys who just got whacked by the hurricanes in North and South Carolina, and the folks who got obliterated by the fires in California, well, the counties are making these deals, signing these contracts with these corporations, so they'll at least keep the lights on in City Hall. But the people aren't agreeing to this. The politicians are basically signing over their people, the life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. Meaning, the folks in California, their politicians have signed over their water rights and their air rights and their property rights, just so the politicians can get their salaries and keep the bare essentials running, so they can finish out their thing and get the heck out of Dodge. And if you want to know more about this woman who has a site called stopthecrime.net, it's one of the best, all around sites with this kind of information that is straight up. This woman, is quite brilliant, and she doesn't, take, hearsay as fact. She really gets and she puts it up on her thing. All of these documents, all this stuff from Agenda 21 and the federal government and the World Bank and all of that stuff, she puts up there. You can see it, It's pretty amazing. There is a paper she has that pretty much everyone should read called Silent Weapons for a Silent War. It's like, whoa. Yep, mosquito butterfly effect. Yes. Cause and effect, problem, action, solution. And that's David Icke. He's another good one, and David has to be given, he's like the patron saint because he's been doing this for 30 years. And when he was like whacked upside the head by a shaman in South America, about 40 years ago, and he was like making a nice dollar being a TV presenter. He had been a professional soccer player. He was a poor boy from the wrong side of thing. He learned how to play soccer. He was on one of those teams in the 70s, and in the late 70s and 80s, he became a team because he was a good-looking guy. He could speak fairly well. He became a TV presenter, and then he went to the World Cup for Brazil, hung out a little bit. He ran into a shaman who said, "Hey, here, let me blow this stuff up your nose," and bingo, David Icke was in another planet, and he came back. Everyone, "Hey, how's your weekend? Did you know that the Queen of England's a reptile?" He went off the hook on all of this stuff. And he kept saying it, so he lost his job. So he started writing books and giving lectures in the library, and like 3 people would show up. But now, thousands of people show up. And what I have to, so he is not wavered. He really is a guy who is in service to love's co-creation. Because a lot of the folks in the UFO world or the disclosure world or the what do they call it? You know, when you think someone did something, JFK, that's a conspiracy theory, right? Well, again, your Sensei Al Bob always takes words apart. Sensei theory, not sensei. Conspiracy theory. You look at the dictionary? What is conspiracy? But when 2 people come together in secret to do something, kind of vile, right? Okay, that's what that word means. Theory means a a idea put forth looks for evidence that can be put into a format that you can prove your theory, right? So conspiracy theory is having a theory about more than 2 people coming together to do something not too nice, and you try to collect data that will prove your theory. You know, that's not being insane. That's not being a terrorist. That's not being a criminal. No, it's being a scholar. Or that could be your hobby, whatever. But the way it gets so, and who put those 2 words together was the CIA, because they knew they had to protect their secrets. 1947, we had this National Securities Act, and that's right when Roswell happened, and a flying saucer or ET technology was dropped in our lap. And the military, after spending loads of money on technology for World War II and World War One, the U.S. kind of said, "Wow, we figured out how this thing works. This will jump us ahead of everybody." And they did, and they kept finding other, and what the ET folk were doing was dropping these things in our lap so we could kind of get the 411. And then in the 50s, during Ike, they came and visited. The movie, Spielberg's movie, Close Encounters of the Third Kind, was exactly what happened. But, it happened at an Air Force base out there in the middle of the desert, and Ike went to visit them, right? So, and all of this stuff you can find all of this stuff on the YouTube and Google and the internet, right? Wikipedia. And what you have to do is not take any of this crap as gospel. What you need to do is there's a process called divining or muscle testing, right? And it works very nicely. And if you learn how to do it, I will teach you. Um, Whenever information comes your way, you will muscle test it or divine it to see whether it's right, And what you're basically, when you do this, divining or muscle testing, you have all these little creatures in your gut. Yeah, buddy, come on in. I'm dressed.
Oh, jeez, what are you doing?
I'm right here. I'm I'm just rubbing my stomach. I'm not doing
Are
anything.
you doing a live video?
Yes, I am.
You're talking to a live video with that?
Mm-hmm. No, yep.
Hey, how's it going?
Everyone's in state. They're in their akashic records. They're not.
Really?
They're not here now.
Have you been thinking of me?
No.
Thank goodness, it's all my own epiphany that I had, and it's not somebody else like helping me do something.
No. Yeah, close it so the cold air doesn't get in.
Okay. No, oh yeah. Somebody told me what to do, right? I'm not like that.
Not me.
I'm not a man anymore.
Yes, you are.
Somebody told me what to do, like a boy, like Andy Warhol. Like his parents told him what to do.
No, Andy kind of went at it on his own.
He had parents that he answered to, obviously, like his mom that loved him very much. Anyway, guess what? you want to talk to the people, you want to tell your audience something really, really amazing that's good.
Sure, lay it on us, John.
I'm going to create the best feature film I have ever created in my entire life and will ever be able to create ever again, because it's going to be the most effort I've ever put into any one project in my life. And it's going to be so meaningful on so many multi layers, not just in the editing layers, but in parallels that are in the multiverse, this universe, the Earth, the galaxy, the infinite universe, and again, all those multiverses. It's going to be the best creation I could ever imagine, ever creating, and ever will create. And it'll be the product of an immense willpower to do a tremendous amount of effort and love and good feeling and beautiful beauty, because there's so much beauty that you couldn't even describe it in anything less than saying beautiful a million times in so many different ways, and emphatically saying it so happily, because happiness is a huge part of it, and sadness is going to make people cry, and
So, John,
it's gonna be my best work I've ever created,
so what do you
and it's
start?
gonna help
You
have
got to
these things
start.
happen in my life
You
that
got
I
to
have been
start with a
stagnant
script. You
that
got
I've
to.
been stagnant
Well,
with for so long, and now I've realized that I'm gonna have this. Hey everybody on Alan's channel. Hey, how you doing? He's Owl Bob.
And we are on Dreamy Dreamland with Sensei Al Bob right as we speak.
And I am John Birmingham.
Yep.
Yeah.
So, John,
Yeah.
John. So you got to write a script first, right? If you're going to do a film, you got to write a script.
Yeah, of course.
Right.
That's the
That's what you're going to work on.
the backbone of the country, United.
Yep.
The script, but I don't want to make it too funny.
No.
It's not going to be comedy.
Pathos.
It is going to be drama.
Pathos.
The classical Hollywood drama.
Pathos.
And it's going to be somewhat experimental, and it's going to be avant-garde.
Sounds good to
It's going to
me.
be so original that it almost can't be categorized, yet it fits into a perfect genre if it has to.
I like it.
Yes. And it's going to be brilliant, of course, but that's just inherently, without saying how I spoke about myself on MySpace really all the time, acting like I was the best thing, calling myself a genius and everything. Then Kanye West somehow caught onto it, and everyone made fun of him for it. And like they all have always taken some of my ideas, and I haven't quite gotten huge enough yet at any one thing. But it doesn't bother me, because I feel okay and happy.
Well, I love that, buddy.
And amazing right now, because I had an epiphany that I'm going to do this thing that's good, and I'm not trying to hurt anyone, and
Thumbs up.
don't have any reason to.
Thumbs
I just
up.
feel happier than ever and good about everything.
Well, go to it, and this can fill your life instead of always, oh, woe is me. You can just keep writing, keep organizing, getting ready.
Kim Terry.
Right, and anything you need.
Who is Kim Terry?
I don't know.
McKim?
I have no idea.
He's the guy that used to be in this neighborhood or something.
But buddy, can I go back to this live chat?
Yeah, but I had an epiphany.
Well, I think it's, and I'm glad you shared it with us.
Could imagine ever being created.
I appreciate that you shared it with us, and I feel honored.
Yeah.
That you came down and told me.
I'm going to go out there in the world and get the money for it any way that I can without hurting anyone.
Yep.
Without hurting anyone.
Yep, that sounds right.
Yeah.
Yep.
I'm going to go out there and make money to raise the money. I'm going to get an agent.
Yep.
I'm going to do all the things that, instead of being out here in the woods,
right,
I'm going to go out there and work as much as I can.
And you will meet people, and you will have a life.
I'm gonna be confident that I have the motivation right now to carry me through super amounts of effort, energy, willpower, love, kindness, good, happiness, well-being to make it through when it gets difficult. I'm gonna do it. this is going to be my best creation ever, a feature film.
Yep.
While there still are feature films that
Yep.
are huge and, making a lot of money, and without, I'm just trying to be respectful to them.
Well, you got to come up with the treatise, the script, and go from there. With those two things under your
Yeah,
arm,
because it could turn into 360 virtual reality videos.
yep, it could do that. Okay, buddy. Thanks.
Yeah.
Yep.
Are they commenting stuff? Yeah, they're commenting. What did it say?
Are you watching my channel?
This is on Instagram. I didn't do it on my YouTube channel.
Can you look at the YouTube while you're doing that? Do you look at my channel? Are you looking at my?
No, this is on Instagram.
Oh.
It only goes up to 10. It doesn't go. It doesn't go up to 11. Wait. Oh, but this. Oh yeah. No, this goes up to 11, not 10. It's
Yep.
great either way. It's the most amazing thing ever.
Chris, you take a good evening. Enjoy your Walmart.
This is the most amazing epiphany that I really had.
I think
Look.
it's great, John.
This isn't disappearing like Back to the Future. This is my own movie that I'm creating that's a total original. Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's great, John.
Hi. I'm happy.
Good man. I'm happy that you're happy.
Put on your shoes. Come on, get happy. Wait. Come on. Put on your shoes. Let's go outside. Oh, shit. Sorry. Have a happy day. He's a happy boy.
Bye.
He's a happy boy.
Bye.
He's a happy boy.
I'm a happy boy.
He's a happy boy.
Thanks, John. See you in the morning. Well, we'll see what happens. I mean, I keep saying that, man, the story here, he's like a David Lynch movie, you know? David Lynch, right? Have any of you guys ever seen Mulholland Drive by David Lynch? Whoa. It's one of my top 5 favorite films. Let's see. Yep, exact Simone. I can say it with me. If David Lynch, John and David Lynch could get together. Whoa. Hmm. That was. Ba 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 ba. Yes, he did Blue Velvet too. Yep. I mean, that guy, I love that guy. And he's right up there with Stanley Kubrick, my other favorite. Full Metal Jacket, Clockwork Orange, 2001, Lolita, Paths of Glory, Dr. Strangelove. Yeah. And that's what I'm talking about, the alternative aesthetic, that we have to take, go at this through the cultural sense, not the commerce, not the business sense. That's the illusion. The major thing of the human experience within the context of love's co-creation is, being the artist in the first person, the savage. And the best example of that is Brave New World, Huxley's Brave New World. Because our hero is this guy they find out in the woods, nice, beautiful blonde hair, beautiful white boy, blue eyes, and his parents were scientists out in the woods, and then they died. But he learned how to read as a boy, and then he kind of was brought up with the animals, and then more folk from the big city, from the utopian society came, found him, brought him back, and he was the most popular boy because he was so good looking, so perfect, so everything, so different, but still very smart. Wasn't a threat, and they called him the savage, right? So that's what we're looking at. We're looking, and when we as scholars go look on how to solve a problem, we go back, we do our research. Why, instead of trying to invent the wheel, we say, so what happened before me? Where did it come from? What is going on there? You know? And so that's our homework for the next few nights is to, whenever time you have, you go into the Akashic record, and all of these books that you've read, all of these movies that you've seen, all of these things, etc., you go right now. You can go turn another one of those onion skins of your Akashic record and start looking at this stuff in a deeper way. How it affected you with pathos. And so Mulholland Drive, that movie, really, because I watched it, I'm watching it, and I'm a guy, I'm a film buff. I look at a lot of movies. My grandma took me to movies every week for the first 6 years of my life. That's what we did. That's one of the things. And then we would go to Schraff's for a Sunday. And we would talk about aesthetics and about what I thought about that movie and what it meant to me and the pathos. And she would, read me books on Greek theater, right, and Shakespeare, and then read me Greek theater and Shakespeare. But she wanted me to understand aesthetics because she was really affected by the Bauhaus. And you have to realize my grandma came from the woods of North Mountains of Italy. You know, when we were watching the guy, Neil Young, one big step for me, a big tax break for humanity. Um, we were watching that on 5 in the morning on my grandma's little Motorola TV, and she goes, Al, when I was your age, and I was, I think, 96, so I guess I was 16. Yeah, I mean 69. I was 19. Um, she said, um, when I was your age, I was living up in the mountains, and the only technology we had was a candle and the wheel. We didn't have windows or doors in our mud huts, right? And we slept with the animals to stay warm in the wintertime. And she said, "Here I am," and I didn't know how to read. I didn't even know how to read Italian. But I came to America. I went down to Rome, got a job, made some money, got enough money to get on the boat to come to America, and I met your grandfather. We got married on the boat, and I moved into a house that was like only dukes and duchesses had, but I was in the middle of Harlem, and it was a brownstone, but I thought it was a castle, and it was full of books. And the people who lived in the house, in the apartment above and below, were black people who were college professors in the black colleges, and they taught me how to read, and I read all of those books, and that's why you're learning how to read at 4, right? So that's what we have to do. We have to look at our Akashic record and look at all the books we read, everything, and in our past lives, all of the culture. We have to investigate all of the culture and pick out all the best parts, right? So Mulholland Drive, right, starts with this girl coming off the bus. She's like, everything's an archetype in that movie. She's blonde and beautiful and just amazing, and she's going to be a movie star, and she's going to stay with her aunt, who was a kind of, was a movie star, but, be one. And it was a girl who danced and sang and could kick higher. Forget her name, but that actress who was like in her, I don't know, 60s, played her aunt, right? And paraphrased who she was, right? And they living in a nice house, a bungalow kind of house in California, built probably in the 30s or 40s, and or maybe 20s, and she is following the path. And because her great aunt was in the business, she still has her connections, and so she's going on, you know, meeting directors and producers and going on sets and reading for parts, and she meets a woman who seems very strange and has maybe murdered someone and is hiding, and she just because she's come from the Midwest, even though she's smart and wanting to be a movie star and beautiful, she's a little bit naive, and her aunt kind of protects her, and the aunt's best friend owns all the bungalows. Anyway, it goes on, it weaves this little story, and all these people come in and they all have something happen in them that's somehow connected to this woman, and and it gets darker and darker. And most movies, I can tell you what is going to happen. Who's the hero? Who's going to fall in love? Who's going to die? Kind of like South Park. Kenny's always going to die. Carton is always going to respect my authority, and the other guys try to figure it out. And Butters is Jesus Christ. Butters and Kenny are together are Jesus Christ. So anyway, the that whole movie goes, and I get confounded because I can't figure it out. Oh well, that guy's no, that doesn't happen. Oh, he's gonna no, oh this is gonna no, and anyway, it all goes to the end of the movie, and the darkness. I mean, just gets darker and darker in every aspect, and the characters hate. So this is going on about the photonic energy and the light of Satan. I mean, every metaphor that I've been talking about, Lynch throws in this movie. It's like, whoa. And so the last scene, and this is like, this is a warning, this is like, puts it all together. What you find is that the girl who's the peaches and cream and blonde and is going to be the next Marilyn Monroe or whatever, the darkness she gets in, it's from her subconscious and from her id. All this is coming from her id, right? And what happens is the last 2 minutes of the film is blinking white, and you're thinking that she's murdered the girl that you think has murdered somebody, and her boyfriend, and all of these things. And then all of a sudden, you hear the crack of she's like kind of losing it, and the blue light of the police car is like blinking out there. They're not at the door, and she's masturbating. Right? She's really doing a great method acting of young blonde girl masturbating. Right? And and just as she comes, she takes a gun and blows her brains out. And everything in that whole movie comes together like bang, like whoa. All those things you couldn't figure out why this was that way, what this was, what that's important, but you have not a clue. It all comes together and whang, one like a hammer coming down. And that's when I said, this guy is brilliant. He's not just making wacko movies. This 1,000 years from now they're going to be talking about this movie. He's like Shakespeare. And so that's why I like him. And all his, Blue Velvet was pretty amazing that way too. All his films are pretty friggin' amazing. So, one I forgot who asked me about the guy committing suicide. Anyway, The best explanation I can give for that question is that movie, David Lynch's Mulholland Drive. I was listening to a thing on BBC Worldwide this morning about Antigone, classical Greek. Oh, it is. Antigone is the best frigging Greek play of them all. I mean, there are others I have favorites, but it really talks about the major real issues of power, authority, what's justice, what's righteousness, what's all of the above. The dumpster scene scared the hell out of. Yes, exactly. Great movie. The topic, oh, it's been floating all over the universe. Basically, what we've been talking about is, you know, one of the cadre's major projects is to build a foundation of an alternative aesthetic as an alternative to humanity's and our illusion universe's thing of commerce. Our soul was not created to be, mostly focused on commerce. No, it's mainly here for culture because culture is our vehicle to express who we are. And I was talking about, you know, in co-creation, the artist in the first person, the savage, and a good example is Orwell's Brave New World. Our hero, that thing is savage, and what does he do? What is his greatest act in the end of the book? Is he blows his brains out, which totally freaks because he's like on every TV show. He's like he is the it kind of guy. Everyone wishes they were him, and he just wants to go back to the woods. He wants to hang out with the animals. He don't, these people are just, not. They won't let him go because he's so popular, and he's such a big ratings hook, right? So they're not letting him go. So he blows his brains out. You know. Now I'm not a big fan of suicide, right? But and then I was talking about Carlton in Tale of Two Cities. The beginning of the book, he's on top of the world. He's a great lawyer. Everyone loves him. He's doing a good job. Blah blah blah. Meets this woman who's, she's about to end up in jail because she's trying to get money to get her bust her boyfriend out of jail in France before he gets his head cut off. So, he falls in love with her. She loves him as the kind man that he is. He like moves her into his house because she's got he gets her out of the legal predicament she's in, and he is like taking care of her, and he's not putting any demand, leaning on her, giving her demands, and so she really loves him, but she's not in love with him. Now she's in love with this guy in France, right? So he says, okay, I'm going to go to France and bust him out. I'm a lawyer. I'll see what I can do on the law scene. Got a lot of money. The other side of law is about money. And so the boy, the lawyer guy, he was a orphan. And this other rich lawyer picked him up as he didn't have a son, wanted to have a son. And he makes him into this great character, which is another, dynamic of the society making people, either good or bad, like Trading Places with Eddie Murphy and what's his, this one guy, white guy, and, the two really rich guys who are like nurse, think they rule the world, experiment with people's lives. So they take a guy off the street, a drug dealer, just, and then destroys the rich guy's privileged life and throws him in the street and takes the street guy and puts him in that guy's place just to see what would happen. And, good old Tale of Two Cities is almost that because the lawyer guy who came from the street then becomes son of a earl, and then he falls in love with Frances brings her boyfriend just because he loves her. he finds that the guy that she's in love with is his identical twin. I mean, if he just pretended to be that other guy, because he kept saying, you look awful familiar. And, so realizes, my God, this guy. And then he realizes that he's not some righteous, revolutionary that's getting his head cut off with the guillotine. He is a jerk, petty criminal who has treated everyone like crap, and he should be get his head cut off. But what is our hero who we're rooting for does? We want him to fall, that girl to fall in love. No, he takes the place of this monk, his twin brother who doesn't even know, and then spirits him back to England to take his place. And it's a speech, that everyone knows. It's the one line of it's a far better thing I do now than I do. But Dickens was always pretty good at going with a soliloquy, and he has this nice little thing about if it's love, and the only thing you can the best thing you can do is sacrifice yourself for love. No, the thing you need to do is co-create with love, not sacrifice. But he spears the guy out back to the girl, and the only way he can get him out, he can't just bribe him out. He has to bribe him out, but he has to take his place. And when he's about to get his head in the guillotine, he goes on about love, right? Go read that soliloquy, right? And we have to start deconstructing all of this great culture, all of this great art, to create this alternative aesthetic. And all it's going to be, it's not, we're not reinventing the wheel, it's taking all that is great that humanity has done, and not only humanity, but the other species on all the other planets, because with the Akashic record, you can go look at every species all across the universe. That's why you don't need a chemical based rocket ship, not even a flying saucer. So, and all of this kind of stuff has been picked apart and discovered by the powers that be, the hidden hand, the national security state. And they're hiding it because they don't want to free the public. But the public is starting to understand psychically, you know? And I don't know how many of you saw John's breaking in here and telling me, I just got this great epiphany, right? Well, this is what I've been, he goes, you didn't think about it and put it in my head. Well, yes, I did, meaning I've been thinking about it and put it in his head. But he is like a radio antenna. He picks up everything. Now, if he could write a script like David Lynch about what he's going through, it would be a classic piece of art. I mean, John's life is this. I keep saying he's the canary in the coal mine. Anyway, so there's a little ramble from me. What are you guys thinking? Let's see. The dumpster, yes. I watched a thing on Dickens recently. He ran a theater with his family. Yes, 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 yes. And he did that because he wrote the only two things he wrote that people know about. That he wrote from, with the idea in his head, beginning, middle, end, and he sat down and wrote the whole thing. One Tale of Two Cities. David Copperfield, Great Expectations, and all those other books. He wrote for newspapers, and he was making money for it, right? He was like, theater in those days was great. I mean, it still had the Shakespearean globeness to it, and that's where vaudeville was kind of got started. And Dickens and Melville, and Mark Twain, and Mary Shelley. My four, I mean, of that crew, those are my favorites. Now, Byron and all of those guys I really like too, but they're a whole different genre, right? And the thing is to go see Byron in his hometown. Oh, any of you guys in Ireland who is the great author on the West Coast, along the West Coast Road that you can stop in? I keep thinking it's Byron, but I'm not quite sure. But he was kind of not that tall, and he was bald, and he lived into the early part of the 20th century, and that town is existing on that he lived there, you know? And the other thing that town is living on is that Oko Yono and John Lennon bought a house on the west coast of Ireland. There's this little peninsula that kind of goes out, and all the rich people live over there. Beautiful little beach. And Yoko Ono has a beautiful white house there. Really beautiful. And I think she still has it. So, and all of these characters that I'm just spouting out here, we have to start reading them, um, you know, and bringing them into our consciousness and co-creating with love with them as we were them, you know, meaning, I was, a mirror image of Nikola Tesla, meaning I really, between the ages of, 9 to 29, I was the Tesla guy, before anybody talked about him, before anybody, I met the first book that was really any good on Nikola Tesla was Margaret Cheney's book, Man Out of Time. Then every other book about Tesla, basically people read that book and then wrote a book just like hers and said it was theirs. And then some other person read that book and then wrote their book and said it was theirs. It was like a sick game of telephone. And Margaret Cheney was a friend of some folks who lived up in Punk Hollow, that's the Theosophical's country little farm, and I hung out with her, and she was writing that book, and it was like, right, she was amazing, right, and I've had this great blessing of running into people like that, and some of them have lasted with me many years. Some just like a weekend. That was her, just a weekend. She had come to visit her friend. She had written a book. She was visiting her publisher. Um, she had it all over the place on the big desk in the kitchen, and when when I was fixing something, and she, I said, "What are you writing there?" So I was writing a book about Tesla. I said, "Whoa, really?" And and I said, "Do you know Mike Stoll Sr. and Grandpa Stoll?" I said, so yes, Grandpa Stoll. And she goes, "Well, I met him many, many years ago, and his stories about Tesla were amazing." I said, "Well, that guy is my mentor. I have been studying, I've been his Padawan for the last, 14 years, 14, maybe 8 years at that time, maybe 14." And then she named a few. Yeah, yeah, I studied with them. Oh, yeah, I worked there. So we had a really amazing little connect, right? That nice weekend, and and then we wrote letters. She liked writing, I liked writing, and it's before the internet. And of course, my father threw all those letters out. I mean, I had some great stuff, but Dad threw it all out. And my father, I built him a house. I built a secret closet so I could put all my really special, all the photos that I took at the Phil Maurice and all these other art and culture and great, folk and things I wrote and we're gonna have published. And you know, my dad put a garage door in the ceiling and went up there and said, "Oh, what's all this stuff?" I had like 100 boxes full of stuff, and they were all neatly, taped up. And I wrote, "Al's stuff, very important. Don't throw out. Leave alone. This sacred material." And my father threw it all away. And then 2 years later, when I came back, and he wanted to sell that house, and he sold it at the worst part of the '86 savings and loan. I mean, if he just rented it out for a couple of years, he probably would have gotten $2 million for it. But he sold it to this, Wall Street lawyer for about 300 grand, and I built it for him with my crew labor, materials, and property, $78,000, right? And he said, I want you to come over and show it because, I built it as an automated house. This is 1985. I built this house. And it was, I made it an automated house. You walked in, the lights dimmed up. Walked out, the lights dimmed down. There were sensors in the walls to see if you were there, how and what temperature you wanted, stuff that they're just, I did it, and it was pretty much analog stuff. And there was no computer doing this. Anyway, my dad wanted me to show her how to do all this stuff, and I went there, and that's when I found that he had thrown all my stuff away. And I was in the kitchen, I was looking at the butcher knife, I said, I'm going to kill this motherfucker. And here's a lawyer, and she was in shock when I said, Dad, what you doing with my stuff? He, my house, I do what I want. I said, Dad, I had them boxed up. it's in a hidden. How'd you even find it? He said, well, I put one of those attic ladders into the ceiling of the garage, and there's this room, and all your stuff is there. And I threw it all away. I said, why didn't you just leave it there? I mean, you didn't need, you got, 8 million square feet of, I built this gigantic house. You had more closet space than you could. It's a White House. I do what I want. I just threw it away. And my dad was, he knew what it was. He was, a little bit jealous, a little bit scared, a little bit stupid, a little bit angry, a little bit hypoglycemic. Bad day, he threw it away. And the lawyer lady, she was like, right? I'm saying, so I see she's really aghast at my father for doing this, so I could just take the butcher knife to him, and I'd probably get off for this. But then, that was the devil over here saying that. Then the little angel over said, no, Alan, this is a great opportunity. If you can forgive your father at this moment and let it go, and not really, I'm kind of kvetching about it, but it's only because it has some kind of link in this story. Um, you know, you will like do a tremendous leap forward in your spiritual life. And I said, that motherfucker, he ain't worth me killing him. And I'm gonna just let him, go on. So, I said, okay, whatever, Dad. And I said, lady, here's my business card. You know, call me up. I gotta go. Then I got my vehicle and drove away. And about a week later, she called me up and said, "Oh, why don't you come over? I'm moving in. I kind of set it up, and you're an amazing guy." I said, "What?" And she says, "Well, I used to be a district attorney before I started." And she used the first term I heard someone say, before I started working for desperate lawyers, corporate people, and so. She goes, you live in the neighborhood. Why don't you come over and let me make you a dinner because I love this house that you built and I can see it's not your father, it's not your mother, it's you. This is a piece of art. I only met you for 20 minutes, but I'd love to talk to you. And she goes, and I found a couple of your boxes of stuff. I said, wow. Yes, John. Yeah, come on in. I'm gonna go. It's almost 2 hours. So.
How's it going?
Pretty good, but if you're gonna come in, you can't.
Okay.
You gotta close the door.
Okay.
Uh, uh, Anyway, so that's almost 2 hours. So I'm gonna say good night. What? Close the door. Close.
I'm making a feature film again.
Yeah.
The biggest one ever.
Yeah.
The best one. The most amazing timeless. Most kind, nice, humanity helping. Everything I can without being too horribly, awfully political in one direction or another. And, not being too much of a humanitarian, also doing things to be kind to the people in my immediate life. That's really what it's for. It's not really to help the rest of humanity too much. I'm not going to try that too much. To be very entertaining with it. Yeah. Are you filming me?
Yeah. You're making
You want a piece of lettuce?
Yeah, no,
piece of
no,
lettuce?
I'm good.
A piece of lettuce is healthy.
I know.
You just go to this when you're hungry.
Yeah, exactly. Yep.
And go to, when you need more substantial food, just go to chicken.
Yep.
Or tofu.
Well,
beans,
yep.
all this protein
There,
stuff.
there
You don't need salt.
that stew that I made for you in the crock pot has all those things in it.
Fruits, vegetables,
Yep. Chicken,
protein.
beans. Yep. No
Some
tofu.
fat's okay.
Yeah.
Some fat's okay. Olive oil is good.
Yep.
Good for you. Without the key is no carbs, or some carbs, of course, but figuratively no carbs, and hardly any added sugar, and no NutraSweet. No, you can have it here and there. Here and there, you mess
Ugh.
up as just normal. You can't. Nobody's perfect, but you do the best you can. And the key to losing weight, the key to being in a really really good shape, it's a simple formula. It's easy. All you do is have hardly any carbs and hardly any added sugar. That's it. You can eat almost as much of the other stuff as you want. No processed food, like no. Think about it. If it has added sugar or those
Chemical.
it's those chemicals and stuff. Don't have any of that. No carbs. It's very low carbs, and just have protein and fruits and vegetables, pretty much.
Okay, guys.
You
It's
can eat
about
as much of it as you
2
want. You get
hours
hungry,
and
you
2
just go to
minutes,
that. You can eat tons of it. You
22
could have
seconds.
like 10 chicken breasts, and you're not going to be able to eat them all.
Yep.
But you have something to eat if you want to make yourself eat it. Then all you got to do is get into working out
Yep.
a little bit, and you have a perfect body if you're young enough, and you don't have any problems. That's the whole key right there.
Oscar Wilde.
Yeah.
Yep. What do you
You
think
just
of
don't have the stuff around. If you have some sweet stuff staring right at you,
John?
and
What do
you're
you think
hungry,
of Oscar
you eat
Wilde?
that. If you have potato chips there, you eat that. If it's there, if it's not there in the house, you're not going to eat it.
What do you think of Oscar Wilde, John?
Oh, was he a great writer?
Yep.
Film writer?
Yep. Yep.
Or director? He was a director and writer, I believe.
Yep.
I don't recall which films he wrote and directed offhand, but I know he's one of those famous older,
Yep.
really